Hello everyone. This is R. Suresh Kumar, working as Assistant Professor, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Dundigal, Hyderabad. Today we will discuss about interesting topic as a groundwater and aquifers, and how in this groundwater in this topic, what is meant by groundwater? Groundwater can be bifurcated, and the forms of the groundwater and types of aquifers can be discussed from this today's topic. So in this groundwater, how the groundwater can be available. Actually, the groundwater beneath the earth surface is soil pore and spaces in the fractured or rock formations. The depth at that which the soil pore spaces are fractured can be, and also voids the rocks can be became and completely saturated with the water is called the water table. The water which is availability of the water is called water table. So here the depth of the soil of the pressure spaces, pore spaces of the fractures, and like that, the voids of the rocks become completely saturated with water is called water table. Next, what is meant by subsurface water? In subsurface water, the water can be soil material mental is called subsurface water. The water beneath and surface can be essentially be divided into two type of the zones. The first one is the unsaturated zone. Also, what is meant by unsaturated zone is also known as zone of aeration, which includes the soil and water zone. And the second one is zone of saturation, which includes the ground water. Next, purged groundwater table. In this purged water table, see that at the top of the body of the ground, the water separated from here. So purged water table from the main water table beneath it can be zone is not saturated is called. See the diagram. The purged water table which is separated from the main water table. So that is we call it as purged water table. Here see that one. This is the purged water table. Next, groundwater movement. So the groundwater table, the groundwater moves relatively slowly in this ground, and rock undergrounds and slowly can be formed and undergrounds, which is also porous of the materials. Next, because it moves on the response to different in the water pressure and also elevations, and water within the upper part of the saturated zone tends to move downwards following the slope of the water table. Next, what is the movement of the groundwater? The factors affecting on the groundwater means the slope of the water table. The slope of the water table means here the steeper the water table, faster groundwater moves, and means the water in the low-lying areas the water can be moves as the fast can be moved from one to one side to other side due to of the gravitational. So here permeability. In the permeability it means if the rock pores of the small and poorly unconnected, the water moves slowly. When openings are large and well connected, the flow of the water is more rapid. Is called permeability. Next, the water table groundwater can be divided in the number of zones as we discussed in the previous. So soil water zone, intermediate zone, and capillary zone can be bifurcated into the groundwater. Let us see one by one. Soil water zone. In the soil water zone means in the soil water, the porous spaces between the particles of the soil. The soil water is water that is immediately available to the plants. So that is due to capillary action, the top layer of the water can be absorb the plants. So from this immediately it can be absorbed that one. So that is called as soil water zone. The water can be moved air drying by plant absorption. It cannot be removed of the gravity. Next, plants extracts from the water through their roots until the soil capillary forces is equal to the extractive force of the plant roots. Next one is the point. The point of the water table held in the soil water. Excess water drain is called field capacity of the soil. Next, second one is intermediate zone. Intermediate zone means here there is a layer intermediate zone. Here see that one. In this intermediate zone, the availability of the next of the soil of the zone. It is lies between the soil water zone and as well as the capillary purchase. That is the called as intermediate zone. Next, capillary zone. In this capillary zone, the capillary fringe is substance is layer. The groundwater seeps up to the water table is capillary action to fill the porous. So, the porous of the base capillary fringe of the water due to the tension saturation. In this one, what is the meaning of that one? Here, there is a water zone here, water table, and from this water table of the black line, which is already showing in that diagram, and there is some dotted line is there. The capillary action can be, water can be moved from the upwards, but it can be absorb the water table and above and absorb the water table as due to the capillary action. So that is the capillary action of the capillary zone. Of course, this is the soil water zone can be bifurcated in the pore water pressure, generally less than the atmospheric pressure. So that is the next one is pore water pressure greater than the atmospheric pressure. That is called saturated zone, and second one is unsaturated zone. The water table saturated zone means here that the surface of the zone which all rock openings are filled with water. That is the meaning of the saturated. So all the which the substance of the zone which the all rock openings are filled with the water. Next, water table. The water table, the upper surface of the zone of the saturation. So next one, water zone. What is meant by water zone? A substance of the zone in which the rock openings are generally unsaturated and filled partly with air and partly with the water. That is the main difference between the saturated and unsaturated of the zones. Partly with water and partly with the air and above the saturation zone. Next, capillary fringe. The capillary fringe nothing but a transaction zone which the higher moisture content at which the base of the water zone in above the water table. That is the water table can be. Next one, some of the definitions can remember for understanding porosity. The percentage of the rock or sediment that consists of the voids opening is porosity. Permeability. We know the very well permeability. The capacity of the rock to transmit the water from the flow of the petroleum through the pores of the fractures. That is called permeability, which allow the water from this porous material, the rocks of the materials, the water which is flowing into the underground is called as permeability. Next, porous rock that holds the water. Next, permeable, a rock that allows the water easily throughout the impermeable. Next, what is impermeable? The rock that does not allow the water throughout the easily is called impermeable. That is the difference between permeable and impermeable. These are already discussed in the previous lectures. So, that is some of the definitions regarding to groundwater. Next, aquifers. Next, aquifers is nothing but aquifer is the groundwater of the composed of the geological formation which is saturated with water sufficiently permeable to yield the water to unstable quantity of the wells and springs, and that is called aquifer. Aquifers can be divided into two important functions. The first one is it transmits the groundwater from the areas of the recharge area to discharge. The second point is they provide the storage of the minimum the unusable quantities of the groundwater of the water. The amount of the material can be held depends upon its amount of water can be holds depends upon its. Next one is types of the aquifers. Very important topic here. What are types of the aquifers? Here the aquifers can be classified into four types. First one is unconfined aquifer, second one is confined aquifer, and third one is purged aquifer, fourth one is leaked aquifer. This is important question of the for the examination as well as GATE exam also. Types of the aquifer: unconfined, confined aquifer, purged aquifer, and leaky aquifer also. Next, types of the aquifer. The first one is unconfined aquifer. In this unconfined aquifer, aquifers are sometimes also called water table or periodic aquifers because they are the upper boundary of the water table, that is called unconfined. When water is flow directly between the surface and the saturated zone of the aquifer is called unconfined aquifer. So it means that when the water can be directly can flow directly between the surface of the above saturated zone water table from to bottom, and the saturated zone to aquifer is surface and the saturated zone of the aquifer, and the aquifer is unconfined. From this one to is called unconfined aquifer. Okay. Next, unconfined aquifer. Unconfined aquifer means they are sometimes also called as water table or periodic aquifers because their upper boundary is the water table and the water can be flow directly between the surface and the saturated zone of the aquifer. The aquifer is unconfined. Next, the deeper parts of the unconfined aquifers are usually more saturated since the gravity causes of the water flow in the downward direction. Due to the downward direction is called unconfined aquifers. So, next one is second one, confined aquifers. What is meant by confined aquifers? In these confined aquifers, also known as artesian or pressure aquifers, we call it as artesian and pressure aquifers. In this confined aquifers occurs where the groundwater is confined under the pressure greater than the atmosphere by overlaying the relatively impermeable strata is called confined aquifer. So it means the water which is entered confined aquifer, the area of the confined bed rises to the surface and maybe also enter the leakage through the confined of the bed. This means the confined aquifer 100% of water can be available and always due to acquiring of the water. That is the confined aquifer. So confined aquifer displays only small changes in storage and serve primarily as conduits of the conveying of the water recharge areas and the location of the natural or artificial recharge. So here see that one, confined and unconfined aquifers. Let us see that one as we discussed in the previously, as unconfined aquifer which is already water from the capillary action which is nearer to the water table and downward, the confined aquifer see here there. This is the streams. From this one the water can be plants can supply the water due to action. This is the unconfined aquifer which is also mixed with the air and soil water. So here the next one is confined aquifer. In the bottom we have to see the confined aquifer is aquifer which is confirmed the water is available in the bottom availability from through the unconfined to confined aquifer. So the water can be completely availability of the confined aquifer can be known for this unconfined aquifer. So this is also the table which is for better understanding confined aquifers and unconfined water. The water can be recharged from the catchment area, and artesian of the well and upper confined aquifer and lower confined bed and confined artesian aquifer. Flowing unconfined aquifers are the water table aquifer and recharge area of the confined aquifer, recharge area of the unconfined aquifers. Next, confined aquifers is also the water table. Better understanding here. So let us see the diagram. Unconfined aquifer, the water can be available from the wells, can be available in the unconfined aquifer. Some of the water availability or some the doubt for the availability of the water, some of the areas. That is the confined aquifer. The third one is purged aquifers. In the purged aquifers means in the purged aquifers are the aquifers They are the special kinds of the phreatic and aquifers occurring where the impervious or semi-pervious layers of the limited to extend the located between the water table or periodic aquifers of the groundwater. So that is called groundwater body separated from the main groundwater body to forms of the purged aquifers. The purged aquifer generally specified by the type of the unconfined aquifers also comes under this unconfined aquifers. Next, the fourth one is the leaky aquifer. Leaky aquifer is the aquifer, but it is the also confined aquifer or unconfined aquifer. So the losses or gains of the water in this one to adjacent sides of the semi-permeable layers is called leaky aquifer. It means the whether it is confined aquifers or unconfined aquifers. So from this water which is can be flow through the edges of the aquifers. The water can whether leaks of the water to the whether it is confined or unconfined aquifers. So the water can be leakages from the edges is called leaky aquifer. Therefore, the term leaky confined aquifer, leaky unconfined aquifer are widely used depends upon whether the leaky aquifer is confined or unconfined. Maybe unconfined or any of the confined can be. Let us see that one here. Unconfined or confined aquifers water table. So you can understand easily whether it is unconfined or confined aquifers. So water which is available, which water can be losses from this edges of that one. We call it as leaky aquifers. These are the four definitions are very important in the examination point of view. Next, this is also one of the lakes of the water, confined and unconfined aquifer. Here there is one. The confined aquifer is the clay is confined aquifers here, and unconfined water table is available here. And this is the lake which is already formed in the rivers and bedrocks in this one. Of course, this is the cross section of the aquifers, which is better to understand how the water can be. Here, see that one. The wells can be acquired from this confined aquifer. Here, this see that one. Water can be acquiring here by confined aquifer. So, next, the very important topic is geological formation. What is the geological formation? In previously, we discussed about types of the aquifers and the groundwater. Types of the groundwater levels can be discussed here. But here, we have to saturated portion of the capillary, and also there's the capillary because the presentation of the mix of the pore of the zones. So here the geological for different type of the availability of the aquifers can be formed, can be different type of the forms. So that is the how the saturated zone, unsaturated zone can be the aquifers can be geological formation can be easily known, and is also can be bifurcated into four types. First one is aquifer and aquaclude, aquafuse and aquaturd. Aquifer is, we know very well, so already. An aquifer is a groundwater table, reservoir compound, geological formation, sufficient permeable of yield of the water, unsuitable stability of the wells of the springs, as we discussed. So next, aquifer. So a geological formation is a group of formations of that yield of significant. The quantity of the water is defined as aquifer, and examples of the aquifers of the sand and gravels are etc. So it means the water which either can be stored or can be forms from this one, we call it as aquifer. A good aquifer include the sandstone, conglomerate and well joined and limestone bodies of the sand and the gravel, and some fragmental or fractured volcanic rocks such as columnar basalt. See, this is also some of the examples of the given the aquifer. So here the aquifer is another definition is given. So in the aquifer, water wells is the again confined aquifer, up to this one unconfined aquifer. So in the recharging of the above the ground, from this one unconfined to confined. The water is flowing from the top to bottom in the due to the gravitational. So when it can be flows with unconfined to confined. So that is the aquifer. Maybe occurs various type of the depths can be, wells can be available, and water can be also be available due to flowing of the underground of the water. Next, aquaclude. What is meant by aquaclude? Aquaclude is defined, it is also a geological formation that can be stored significant amount of the water, does not have capability to transmit the significant of the amount of the water. Examples aquaclude are the clay, etc. So that is the best example for the aquaclude. Let us once again we will remember this one. Aquaclude is defined as it is a geological formation that can be stored a significant amount of the water but does not have capability to transmit a significant amount of the water. And examples of the aquacludes are clay, etc. That is the example for this aquaclude. A solid impermeable area underlying or overlying of the aquifer. Next, it can be absorb the water but cannot be transmitted in the significant amount. That is very important. It can be absorbed but cannot be transmitted from this significant amount. That is called aquaclude. Next, aquaturd. Next, aquaturd is defined as it is also geological formation that can be stored some of the water as well as transmit the water as at the relatively low rate of compared and to aquifers. So sandy clay is the exact example for the aquaturd. Let us see once again. Aquaturd is defined as it is the geological formation that can be stored some of the water as well as transmit the, very important here, transmit the water. That point is very important. Relatively low rate of compared with aquifers. Sandy clay is the best example for the aquaturd. Next, aquifers. What is meant by aquifers? Aquifers is defined as it is also a geological formation that can be neither store nor transmit the water. Solid granite is the ideal example of the aquifers. Aquifer is nothing but it is also geological formation that can be neither store nor transmit the water of the solid granite. Solid granite is the best example for the aquifers. So this is the geological formation. Yes, today we have discussed about the groundwater and groundwater types, layers, different type of the layers, the different type of the zones of we have discussed, and also we have discussed about the types of the aquifers, confined, unconfined, and purged and the leaky aquifers. Like that, there are the different type of the aquifers, and also we discussed about the geological formation like aquifer, aquaturd, aquifers, aquaclude. These are all discussed today's class. I think it can be useful. Thank you so much for today's class.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.